Hey everybody, I'm Soren with Westwood Robotics Slingshot, and today I'm going to be explaining my robot to you. I think we should start off with the intake because it's the most interesting part. So for our intake this year, well, this is my first ever time designing a robot, and this year we decided that since it was our first time, we wouldn't go too complex and do an active intake. So we decided to stick with the claw. So the way our design works is we have two claw like crab claws, and what they do is when the pixels are in range, they fling the pixels into our intake. It works when it's going faster normally, but yeah, they're in our intake. Our claw comes down, grabs a pixel. Same for the other side, and then our wrist rotates, and so does our arm. And then we have linear slides to lift the pixels up and place them. Some considerations I would have made with this design were I would rather use 220s after learning that 330s aren't really the most optimal for this usage. I've also learned that direct driving servos really isn't the greatest idea. As you can see throughout this robot, I have direct driven axons, and the claws direct driven, and so are these things. And we've made we've had to replace various of these servos many times except the axons. Thank you, Veer. Yeah. Yeah, so the consideration I would make is to not have these motors direct driven. Yeah, another thing we have is our innovative flame launcher. We've gone through many iterations over the season, and we ended up with a very small flame launcher. Actually, it's I think Jining designed this, and the way it works is it's really simple. It's just a rubber band that goes through, and launches the plane after the micro servo actuates. Yeah, our drivetrain this year. I also realized this isn't. Yeah. It's like. Yeah. Over the season, I've also realized that these aren't really the best. This isn't really the best configuration to mount my drivetrain, as you can see the motors are on the center and they take up a lot of space. If I were to do this again, I would have done more of a design where I sunk the motors in, as I've learned later, and used maybe a lot. That would make my design a little more compact. As you can see here, we have places for distance sensors, which we plan to implement, but we never got to there, and yeah. Also, the key reason why our robot stopped working during semis, which caused losses, is because our motors are connected directly to this. First of all, they're strung directly to these direct driven first of all, and they're also connected using these 3D printed pieces. And as you can see back here, can you move over here, Jin? This piece broke during semis, and that's what caused us to our lift mechanism to break. So yeah, overall, I think this robot is a good learning experience for me, and I think a lot of other people could learn from this. Another thing before I stop, please CAD your odometry. Don't drill your odometry in like I did. Yeah. Oh yeah. We also use innovative printed belts, as you can see down here. These printed belts have actually worked really well for us throughout the season, and I wouldn't be too unhappy if I use them again. The only thing I would do is maybe use these for a tester bot before my real belts get here. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you for listening.
Alright, I have a few questions about the robot. Okay, what durometer are these belts, and how effective were they?
Okay, yeah, these belts are 95A TPU. They're specifically from the Pryline brand, which I found works best. And yeah, that's it. 95A durometer, and they work pretty well throughout the season. Things I've learned is please use random infill so that it doesn't have a singular breaking point. Use make the walls max so that no infill, and yeah, that should give you a good experience with these types of belts as well.
Did you think about having iterations about your robot and making a V2 perhaps?
Yeah, so over some time, one of our members wanted to make a V2, and I supported him in his endeavors, but it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, and so we stuck with this robot. The way I iterated upon this robot is, for example, we added these claws used to only be 1 point, and we only had one servo controlling two, so we could only place two at once. But throughout the season, we realized that placing 1 is a major advantage, and we wanted to keep that. We also realized, well, during spring break, I also made these flippers to aid our aligner mechanism more, and that allowed for better intaking through the season, I think. Any other questions?
How long did it take you to design the drivetrain, and what design flaws would you consider put into consideration when when making a new drivetrain?
Okay, so when we designed this drivetrain, we didn't really know how to go about it, nor did we have any help. So I think it took us a while actually. I think a majority of our season time was making this drivetrain, which was a long time for anybody to make a drivetrain. But yeah, if you need to learn how to make a drivetrain, please go watch Tristan's parallel plate tutorial. It's not very nice, but you can get an idea of how to make a drivetrain. Yeah, some consideration. So sorry. Okay, I'm just being real.
Alright.
Okay. Some considerations that I would make with this design is, first of all, it's not really. I wouldn't really go for this design again, because the motors aren't really taking up an optimal amount of space. They're taking up too much space during this area where I could use for my transfer and intake. And yeah, I just wouldn't do the motors like this again. How long? Whatever. Okay, we don't worry about that. But yeah.
To the people competing next season, what is your biggest piece of advice in terms of managing a team?
Okay. Wait, before we go there, I'd also like to point out how we're using 1/4 inch aluminum. It didn't really change anything for us this year. I guess it was a little bit chunky, but yeah, other than that, it was really just fine. We got it for really cheap off of Amazon, so I'm not complaining. But yeah, anyway.
What's your advice for competing members next year about management, about building the robot, and time management, like in general?
So I think the majority of I have two pieces of I have two ways to go about this. If it's your off season and it's your first time you got into FTC, you want to do it again, and maybe you didn't compete in the last season but are interested over the summer, I really suggest you learn the basics and learn get with the team, be with their dynamic, and really know the people so that you work well with them. Also make stuff over off season, for old games and stuff. You don't really need to know the game to learn in FTC, and I think that's a great part about it. So yeah, just make a basic robot, I guess. Learn all your, I don't know, Roadrunner or whatever. I'm not really a programmer, but yeah.
Any additional comments you have to give to people?
No, actually. Oh yeah. If you're using printed parts, please be considerate on how big your parts are, so that when you need to reiterate and print them, you don't use up all your filament. For example, I think, yeah, here's one of our, I think it's the
Side inserts.
Yeah, side inserts. This is one of our side inserts for V2, but as you can see, it's very long and uses a lot of filament, and it's really not the best design. I really suggest you stick with these new inserts that we have that are small and they work very well. Yeah, any other questions?
I think that's it for today.
Cool.
Alright, thank you for your explanation on your robot and get advice to next year members.